What is up, and welcome to the Beginner's Guide to Cubase 12, your one-stop shop to creating your very first song in Cubase. So over the next 60 minutes, we'll be going from a completely blank project to this. And we do it like this. Just a super simple track that anybody should be able to follow along with, regardless of their background in computer music. So today we're going to be going through everything from basic navigation of Cubase to recording and editing MIDI and audio. We'll be looking at the chord pads and the scale assistant to show you how Cubase can aid you in the creative process. We'll be looking at basic arrangement, mixing, and using effects. And I'll finish up by showing you how you can export your Cubase project into an MP3 so you can go away and listen to it at your own pleasure. Now that is a lot to get through in 60 minutes, so I've divided everything up into chapters and I've put timestamps in the description below if you're the kind of person that just likes to jump in and out of these things at your own pace. But anyway, that's enough talking for now. Let's just get straight into it. Okay, so here it is, Cubase 12, exciting times. Now, it would be worth noting that I don't work for Steinberg. They don't pay me to make these. So if you are having more technical problems, I advise writing to technical support at Steinberg. However, if you have any questions about anything that I do or anything that I show you whatsoever in this video, let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer everything that I can. So when you open up Cubase for the first time, you're presented with this, which is the Steinberg Hub. Over here we have links to all the latest news, updates, tutorials from Steinberg. And at the bottom we have deals, courses, manuals, and technical support. On the right hand side here I have a list of all my recent projects. If this is your first time ever using Cubase, of course you're not going to have any recent projects. But we do have these tabs which have some empty default projects. But today we're going to start off with a completely empty project. So at the bottom, I'm going to click on Create Empty. And right here, I do suggest creating a dedicated folder on your hard drive just for your Cubase projects. So you can see here on my E drive, I have a folder called Cubase Projects. And then when you begin each new project, I highly recommend that you create a new folder within your Cubase projects folder. And then as soon as Cubase opens up your empty project, I'm going to go File, Save As, and inside our new folder that we've just created, let's give this project a title. I'm just going to call it Beginner's Guide again. Okay, so here we have an empty Cubase 12 project. So straight off the bat, your workspace might look slightly different from mine, but don't worry about it. The Cubase workspace is highly customizable, and as you get more familiar with the software, you'll learn to customize it in your own way. And we'll touch on that a little bit throughout this tutorial, but for the most part, if this is your very first time using Cubase, you're not really going to be worried about that. So let's look at the layout. So at the top here, we have our toolbar and info line. If you don't see it, hit on this cog here, Setup Window Layout. And you can just check or uncheck any of these boxes if you want to make your layout look exactly the same as mine. If I click in the middle section here, you can see we now have a white line around this space. This is our project window. At the bottom, we have our transport bar, as well as a few other things. Again, if yours looks different from mine, hit the cog at the bottom to show or hide different elements. To the left of the project window, we have the left zone, which can be hidden or shown using this button here. The left zone is where we have the inspector as well as some visibility options. If we click this button here, we can show or hide the lower zone. And with this button here, we can show or hide the right-hand zone. And each one of these zones consists of different tabs. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your sound card and any MIDI controller you have is talking to Cubase. So we're going to go to Studio Setup, and under Audio System, make sure that under ASIO Driver, you have your sound card selected. Now this is going to be the sound card that is in your computer. So everybody's computer has a different sound card, so I can't tell you what you will have in this list. But you do need to make sure that your primary sound card is selected here. To set up your MIDI keyboard, you do this under MIDI. Exactly how you do this will be dependent on which kind of MIDI controller you have. So you will have to refer to your manufacturer's documentation on how to set that up. Next, click on Studio again and go to Audio Connections. And under Input, you want to make sure that your audio device is connected. So under Outputs, in Stereo Out, you can connect your sound card here. Or if you're using Cubase Pro like I am and you want to use the control room, you can select your output here under Monitor. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is import some audio. So if we go over to the right hand zone and select Media, here is where all of our virtual instruments, effects, loops and samples, all that kind of stuff within Cubase lives. So I'm going to click on Loops and Samples, and then I'm going to go down to this Bloom pack. And if I click on a file and press play, should be able to hear that sample. Now here we have a volume slider for the preview level of the sample. And we can extend the right hand zone by clicking and dragging. We can scroll up and down using the scroll wheel. And we can refine our search using the subcategories and substyles.
Me like I need you to.
I'm just going to uncheck these. And I'm just going to go through these until I find a vocal that I like the sound of. So I'm going to go with this one. Vocals 120 F sharp M, good enough, lead 01. Sounds like this.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me.
To get it into the project, just click and drag. And then if we press play,
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me.
we should be able to hear that file play within our project. Now to zoom in on this, I'm going to move the mouse pointer to where the numbers are, and you can see the cursor changed to a 4-pointed one. So I'm going to left click and hold down and drag the mouse down to zoom in, drag the mouse up to zoom out, and move left and right to scroll left and right. So I'm going to click and drag above the waveform to zoom in. At the bottom, we can scroll left and right using the scroll bars, and up and down using the scroll bar to the side. Obviously not a lot to scroll up and down with right now. We can also use these sliders to zoom in and out, which is what I'm going to do. And now we can more clearly see this sample.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me.
Now, right now, my project is at 120 BPM, which we can see down here in this tempo box. And it just so happens that this vocal sample was also at 120 BPM. Now if you're not seeing the tempo box, again just click the cog, make sure you have it selected. Next to my tempo I have my metronome. Again, if you don't see it, click the cogwheel. So I'm going to click on the metronome and I should hear the metronome play at 120 BPM. And this vocal sample should be at the same speed.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me.
Now if I speed up the track, we should hear that this vocal sample has been sped up as well.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me.
If for some reason your sample doesn't speed up, first thing you want to do is click up here and make sure your info line is visible. Then click on the audio clip, and where it says musical mode, just click and make sure that you have that enabled. And with musical mode enabled, that will just make sure that the audio speeds up and slows down in relation to the tempo, which I'm going to switch back to 120 BPM. Now at the top we have our toolbar, which can also be accessed in the project window by right-clicking. So by default we have object selection, which allows us to select objects. With an object selected, we can move clips about left and right by clicking in the center of them. In the bottom left hand corner you can see a little square. Click on that and drag. You can shorten from the left. The same goes for the right. At the top, you can increase or decrease the volume of what's in that clip, and it gives you a readout of where that is. So I'm just going to set mine back to 0 dB. At the top right and left, we can fade in and fade out audio. And this button in the middle on the left, if we click and drag, it allows us to duplicate. Right click again and click on the eraser button. We can erase events. And if we click on the scissors, we can split events and move them about as such. And I'm just going to press Ctrl Z to undo. Now before we go any further, I think I'm just going to grab the second sample, drag this into my project, and then I'm going to exit out of this media tab by clicking on this back button twice until we're back on this screen. Let me just minimize that. Now what I would like is for this project to loop around this 8 bars. So to do that, I'm going to click this little white triangle with my left mouse button and drag until we get to the end of bar 8. And now you see this little grey area highlighted, and move the mouse cursor to the top half of the grey bar. You can see the cursor changes to this little hand icon. And if I left click now, you can see this whole section has now turned purple. And this purple section is basically our loop zone. So if I press play, once the playhead gets to the end of bar 8, it will loop back round to bar 1.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the best for me, even if it's not you. I really want the best.
Now loop can also be turned on and off in the transport bar using the activate cycle button. You can see that the purple color also corresponds to the purple in the loop markers. The next thing I'm going to do is label this channel by clicking here. Just typing in vocal. You can also change the color of this channel by clicking in the inspector on this little white arrow. as so. Now the channel and the part can both be given different colors. So if I wanted my part to have a different color, I could just click to highlight, and then in the toolbar at the top, I can give it its own individual color if I desire. Again, if you don't see the color palette, click on the cog, go to color menu. Okay, so now we're going to load up a virtual instrument. So in the right hand zone, make sure you have the media tab highlighted and go to VST instruments. Now your list here will look a little bit different from mine. That's just because over time I've amassed quite a collection of VST instruments. But nevertheless, just go into the top search bar, type in Halion, and you should see Halion Sonic SE. So I'm just going to click and drag that into our project. Now Halion Sonic is a virtual instrument that contains hundreds, maybe thousands of different sounds for you to play about with. So we're going to select a piano. So to do that, in this top drop down menu, I'm going to select all, and then in the category field, I'm going to select piano, and whichever piano preset you have available in your version of Cubase will appear here. Now bear in mind I'm using Cubase 12 Pro, so I may have some slightly different options available to myself than you do. But we're just going to click on Acoustic Grand Piano, which is a preset that everybody should have. So double click on it, and then press on one of the virtual keys. You should hear a piano play. Now we can close this instrument by closing the window using the X. If we want to reopen this instrument, in the Arranger page, we can click on this icon here, Edit Instrument, which will bring it up again. We can also click on that to close it. We can also go into the left-hand zone, and we have the same icon right here, which will do the same thing. Let's just close it. Now, if you want to be able to play this piano with your MIDI keyboard, you have to make sure they have this button pressed in, Record Enable. And now, you should be able to play that piano in. Now, each of these channels we can mute or solo. So I'm going to mute the vocal, and in the Arranger page, I'm going to right click, select the draw tool, and on my Halion Sonic channel, I'm going to click and drag to create an empty MIDI clip. And if I double click on this empty clip, you can see we have the MIDI editor page, and in the MIDI editor we have the same navigational tools as we do in the Arranger. On the left hand side here we have a virtual keyboard, and if we would like to draw in some notes, we can right click, select the draw tool, and just click and drag. And if we play that back, you can hear those notes are being played back. If we select the object selection tool, we can move notes about, as well as change their start and end time. And in the bottom zone, we can see the velocity of each note. If we click and drag, we can make notes quieter or louder. I'm going to right click and erase these. And I'm going to right click, select the eraser, and delete that MIDI clip, and unmute the vocal. So what I would like is for some nice chords that I can play alongside this vocal. Now, of course, if you're a keyboard player, you can just sit and work some out. But today we're going to be using Cubase's chord pads, which are a really great compositional tool within Cubase. So to access those, I'm going to show the lower zone. And in the bottom tabs, I'm going to select chord pads. Now your chord pads may or may not look like this in terms of layout. You can change the layout by clicking on the cog and going to pad layout. I'm going to keep mine on keyboard right now. And if I hit the first pad, you can hear that it plays a C major chord, D minor, E minor, so on and so forth. Now, as well as being able to trigger these pads with your mouse, you can also trigger them with your MIDI keyboard using keys C1 to B1. Which is very cool as it allows you to play chords by only playing one note at a time. Now our vocal that we've chose here is luckily labelled F sharp minor. So let's change our chord pads accordingly. So I'm going to click on this little box icon and select Load Chord Pads Preset. And I'm going to select F sharp minor. And now we should have the chords in F sharp minor. So now with the loop marker playing around these first 8 bars, you can press play on the project and start to jam along some chords that fit with these vocals.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the best for me, even if it's not you.
That's very cool, but these chords are a little bit vanilla. However, we can edit each chord by clicking on a chord pad, and we have a few options available. We can open the editor for each pad by clicking on the triangle on the left-hand side. So right here we can see we have an F sharp minor. Change the root note. We can change whether we want major, minor, diminished, sus4, sus2, or an augmented chord. As well as change the tensions. And the bass note. So I quite like this F sharp minor 7th over a D. Now to close this box, we can just click anywhere within the chord pads. Now I'm going to edit my C sharp minor chord. And as well as the editor, we also have some options within the chord pads themselves. So we can try out different tensions by clicking the arrows at the bottom. As well as different voicings by using the arrows to the right. So I'm just going to play about and experiment until I get some chords that I like the sound of. I'm going to create a new chord up here. So I would like a variation on this B minor. I'm going to go open editor, B, let me go with the sus2 over a 7th. So I'd like my metronome to count in for 2 bars before I record. So to do that, go down to the metronome, click on Open Metronome Setup, and under the General tab, under Counting, I'm going to select my number of bars counting to 2. And now if I press record, I should get a 2-bar count in, and then Cubase will start recording in whatever I play.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the best for me, even if it's not you.
Now with MIDI, we can move clips about in the same way we did with audio. Change the beginning and end points. Right click to split clips up, mute them, all that kind of thing. And Ctrl Z to undo. Now you can hear that my timing and how hard I played those chords are all over the place. So let's get in there and edit this. So I'm going to double click on the clip to reveal the MIDI editor in the lower zone. Let's make that a little bit larger so we can see. Zoom out a bit. Scroll up and down. Now I could of course move all of these notes about so that everything lines up with the grid exactly. But what we're going to do is quantize these, which is going to set the beginning of each chord to play exactly on the grid. Now we can change the grid size by clicking on this drop down menu here. So right now each bar is divided into 16ths. So I'm going to go to 8th note, hit the Q button, and now you can see it's quantized everything exactly to the grid. So let's have a listen. Now, right now when I'm playing, I can't hear the vocal playback. This is because I have this button enabled, Solo Editor, and click it. Be able to hear the piano and the vocal at the same time.
I really want the best for you, even if
I'm just going to keep it soloed for now. Now I would like to tidy up the lengths of these chords as well. So in the left hand zone, I'm going to select length. If you don't see it, the option should be available in the cog down here. First thing I'm going to do is select fixed lengths, which is going to create fixed lengths for each of these chords. And then I'm going to select apply legato. And you see that's going to legatoize each of these chords now. Now to resemble a little bit more the way an actual keyboard player would play these chords, of course there'll be a slight gap in between each of the chords as the keyboard player moves their hands. So to emulate that, under scale legato, I'm just going to pull this back down to 90-91%. So you can see we have small gaps between each chord now. Now I can hear that these two chords here are a little bit quieter. So we can just highlight all of the notes and bring the overall volume of them up, as well as each individual note. We can also highlight all of the notes together and using this middle dot, bring the velocity of everything up and down at the same time. We can use the dot on the left hand side to fade in the MIDI or fade out. And we can use this dot in the middle to reduce the difference between the loudest and quietest velocity hits. We pull it down, it reduces the difference. Pull it up, it increases it. I'm going to pull down just to decrease the difference, but still leave some difference in velocity hit, just to keep everything as natural as possible. And then I'm going to use the middle button to increase the overall velocity of everything. So now let's have a listen. Perfect. Right, so let's hide the lower zone and let's label this piano. Now if I hold down Shift and Enter, you can see it will also label all of the clips on this channel the same as we have labeled the channel. We go back into the lower zone and click on Mix Console. You can now see we have access to the mixer, where we have our volume faders for our vocal and piano, as well as my stereo in and stereo out. So I think I would like to have my stereo in and stereo out separated in the mixer. To do that, I'm going to go to the left hand zone, go to Visibility, Zones, and using these dots, I'm going to push my stereo in to the right hand side. And using the drop down menu, I'm going to push my stereo out to the right hand side as well, just to keep things nice and tidy. Now everything is a little bit neater. We can obviously start to balance these two sounds.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me.
And at the top, we can pan everything left or right. But I'm going to keep everything center. I'm going to double click and select C. Okay, so let's start building up the project. Now I'd like to have another sound play on top of this piano. So I could just grab another Halion Sonic and drag it into the project. But I'm going to right click in here. Go add instrument. Type in Halion Sonic. Leave audio outputs as they are. And because I don't know what kind of instrument I'm going to choose right now, I'm going to leave the name blank. Just go to add track. And you see it's created a new Halion Sonic SE. I'm going to get this channel. I'm going to drag and pull it beneath the piano. And I would like the exact same chords that are playing on this piano to play on this new instrument. So I'm going to highlight the clip. Hold down Alt on my keyboard. And you can see the cursor changes to these scissors. And then I'm going to left click and drag this clip down onto the new channel. And you can see it's now duplicated the clip. So I'm going to select this second Halion Sonic. Open up the instrument. And this time I think I want some kind of synthesizer. I'm just going to go to Synth Comp and just double click the first one. Then we take off the metronome for now. And we can just start auditioning different sounds just by double clicking on them and scrolling through them until we find something that we like.
Even if it's not.
Now while we're auditioning sounds, obviously some sounds will be louder, some sounds will be quieter. But in the inspector over here, we actually have a quick access to our fader, which you can see is the same fader that is here. So I'm going to do that while I'm auditioning sounds. So I'm going to go with this preset here, Arps and Chords. Again, you may not actually have this preset in your version of Cubase, or you may. I don't have any kind of list as to which presets come with which version of Cubase, but I'm sure if you play about with this for long enough, you'll find a preset that you like. I like this one. Let's go with it.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the best for me, even if it's not you. I really want the best for you.
Now along the bottom of Halion Sonic SE, we have these 8 dials here. And what these do are allow us to manipulate whatever sound is being played through Halion Sonic. So if I just solo the instrument and just start moving these dials, but by clicking and dragging, you'll hear what I'm talking about. Now if you stop playing about so much that you completely alter the sound and you just want to go back to the original sound, you can just double click back on the preset that you were using. Now I like the way that this filter cutoff sounds. So I would like to record any movement that I make using this. So to do that, I'm going to click on this W here, Right Automation. Let's move this to where you can somehow see what's going on. Now with Right Automation clicked in, I don't need to press record. I just need to press play and then start playing about with the parameter that I want to record. And once we have some automation that we're happy with, I'm going to click on W so that it won't record over that automation. But make sure that we have R selected, which is read automation, which will read this automation line. Now in the same way as we can edit MIDI, we can edit automation just by clicking on nodes, deleting nodes, and using the pencil to draw things in. So I'm just going to select my pencil and make this a little bit more subtle. Cool. Let's label this. Give it a different color. And if we want to hide this automation line, just to keep things nice and neat, we can click on this little arrow here, show hide automation. Just like I say, just make sure you have read automation enabled for that automation to continue playing. Now if we take it off, you can see the automation line grays out and that automation will stop playing. Cool, so let me just create a bass line. So I'm going to grab another Halion Sonic. Let's call this bass. Make it orange because bass is always orange. I'm going to duplicate this MIDI clip. And I'm just going to highlight everything apart from the bass notes here. And hit delete. Let's solo this and find a bass instrument. And I'm going to go with this GM040 Synth Bass 2. Now before we get into drums, let's just do one more thing in terms of MIDI and tonal information. So I'm going to grab one more Halion Sonic. And this time I'm going to get some kind of synth lead. Just going to grab the first one to begin with, lead 1 square. Now me personally, I don't know which notes are in F sharp minor, but that's okay because we can use Cubase to help us. So I'm going to right click, grab the draw tool and create an empty MIDI clip. What I'm going to do is go to Scale Assistant. Again, if you don't see that, hit the cog, make sure you've got it enabled. And by default, the way the grid is set out, you can see that the lighter notes in the grid are the white notes on the keys, and the darker lines on the grid are the black notes. Now if we go to the editor scale, and I'm going to select F sharp and Aeolian natural minor, and then click on this box here that says show scale note guides. You can see now in the grid, everything that is dark is a note that is not in F sharp minor, and everything that is light is in F sharp minor. And if we click on this next one, snap pitch editing. Now, when we enter a note, it will only allow us to enter notes that are contained within this F sharp minor scale. Obviously, we can turn that on and off if we want. And if we click on this next button, snap live input. Now, when I play notes on my keyboard, it will only allow me to play notes that are in F sharp minor, and if I hit a key on my keyboard that is not in F sharp minor, it will automatically pitch that note up or down so that it fits in the scale. So now I can start to jam out ideas and everything will be fixed to this key. So I'm going to record something in, but first I'm going to hit this button here, AQ, which is automatic quantize. And what that means is Cubase will basically automatically quantize everything I play in without me having to go back in and hit the Q button after.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the best for me, even if it's not you. I really want the best. I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the best for me.
Now I can see as I'm playing everything down on my mixer, I'm getting this red bar here, which means that the stereo out is going above 0 dB, which we never want. But I quite like the balance of everything that we have here. So what I'm going to do is click on these three dots up here, Show Hide Mix Console Toolbar. I'm going to click on the first channel, hold down Shift and select all my channels, and then I'm going to click Link. The only thing I need to really worry about is the volume is selected here. Click OK, and now I should be able to pull down the volume of everything at the same time. So I'm going to do that until we no longer see any kind of red bars here.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the
And we can reset the meters just by clicking on them. And then I'm just going to take a link off, just so we can edit everything individually again. Let's give the lead a different color. And let's add some drums. So in the media bar here, I'm going to type in Groove to get Groove Agent SE. And I'm just going to drag a copy into the project. Now Groove Agent SE is Cubase's dedicated drum machine. We can place samples onto each one of these pads and then trigger each sample by playing the corresponding MIDI note. Here we can see C1, C#1, D1. Now we can create our own drum kits, but today we're going to use one of Cubase's presets. So to access those, I'm going to click on this folder here, Show Hide Load Panel. And in the bottom section here, I have a list of all the drum kits that you have available with your version of Cubase. So if I just double click one and press any of the pads, we should be able to hear that drum kit, and we should be able to play those on our MIDI keyboard as well. Now from here we could record in a drum pattern using our MIDI keyboard or enter in the notes using our mouse. But as I've already covered those with the earlier instruments, let's look at a different way we can do this. So if I click on Pattern, you can see the trigger notes on these pads are now different. G#-1 through to B0. And now if I click on a pad, you can hear it plays a pattern. And these pads can be triggered via MIDI notes as well. And this should all be perfectly in sync with our project. So if I press play,
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the best.
so now what I'm going to do is just go through these different kits until I find one that I like the sound of. That comes with a pattern that I like the sound of. Now I can record these patterns in by playing single notes, which I'll show you.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the best for me, even if it's not you. I really
What I'm going to do is go back to the instrument. And what I'm going to do is drag the patterns that I like into my project. So I like the first pattern. And just grab and drag. Like this one. And I like this little fill here. So now we have the actual MIDI information, and we can edit it the same as we did with the other virtual instruments. However, we can also switch from key editor to drum editor. And now you can see each drum sound is labeled. And in the velocity information at the bottom, it will only show the velocity pertaining to that individual instrument. For my first pattern, what I'm going to do is shorten it. And with the second pattern, I'm going to get the scissors tool. And I'm just going to split it and get the first part of that pattern and drag it over to the end of my first pattern. So we get this. Delete this, and then I want to copy this first section over. So I'm going to hold down Alt and drag. And I'm going to make the end of this one even shorter. And just drag in my fill here. So now we have a nice little varied drum pattern.
I really want the best for you, even if it's not me. I really want the best for me, even if it's not you.
Cool, I like that. Let's label it, give it a color. I'm going to right click, select the glue tool, and I'm going to glue all these into one part. And I'm going to drag the drums to the top, my bass, then my piano and synth, then my lead, and then my vocal, just because I like to have things arranged in this way. Okay, so now we've got a nice little idea down. Let's look at how we can start arranging things. So I'm going to zoom out. And if I select my drums and click on this middle button here on the right hand side of the clip and drag to the right, you can see I can duplicate that clip. Now if I highlight all of the others, I can duplicate them all at the same time. Drag the loop markers out, and let's just do the same thing one more time. I'm going to right click, select my mute tool. So I don't want my vocal to come in at the beginning. I don't want the lead. Maybe I just want to start like this. Maybe I don't want the synth to come in straight away either. The reason I like to use mute rather than delete is that it gives me a chance to start experimenting with different arrangements. Once I have something I'm happy with, I can right click and select the eraser tool. And just make things a little bit neater. Now I can of course go into any of these MIDI clips and start doing the same thing. Now in the drum editor, we've obviously got a lot of drums that we're not actually using right now. If we want to hide those, we can select this drop down menu and select show drum sounds with events. And it's going to remove all of the notes that we're not using from the editor so we can more clearly focus in on what we have. So for example, if I don't want my snare drum to play over the first 4 bars, I can just select the mute tool, see how that sounds. And I think I'm going to mute these here. I'm also going to go into this piano part here and zoom in so I can see. And I think I'd like another instance of this last chord to come in. I'm going to highlight these, shorten them, and then I'm going to hold down Alt on my keyboard and click and drag to copy. And let's have a listen to that. And just to give it a bit of variation, I might change the position of these 2 notes. So I'm going to highlight them, hold down Shift on my keyboard and press the up arrow, which is going to put those 2 notes up 1 octave. Okay, so let's look at recording in some audio. So for this, I'm going to put my headphones on, turn my speakers off because I don't want the audio to come back through my microphone. Now I do have to warn you, I'm not any kind of vocalist or singer or anything like that, so what I'm about to do now is probably going to be very cringe, but of course I need to show you how to record audio. So I'm going to right click, create an audio track. So under audio inputs, make sure that you have the right audio input from your Soundcard selected. In my case, it is this one. Now I'm going to be recording my microphone, which is obviously a mono input rather than a stereo pair of microphones. So I'm going to select mono, keep the audio out as it is, and let's just give it a name. Now, just to make sure that we have a signal, I'm going to click on monitor. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. And now you should see your input. Now to increase or decrease the signal coming into Cubase, you'll have to do that on your hardware. So that will be different for everybody, but I'm just going to leave mine as it is. And I'm going to record in something very cringe. Now, I don't want to record right from the beginning because I'm not a vocalist, I'm not a singer in any way, so what I'm about to record in is going to be horrible. And I just want it to happen about here, so I'm just going to drag my loop marker to here and press record. Let's turn my metronome on. And we do it like this. Right, so I'm going to take monitor off. I probably should have done that before I hit record. If you are getting some kind of weird feedback issues, that'll be why, so just take that off. Okay, so straight off the bat, we can hear that that's a little bit quiet. So what I can do directly from the clip is click on this button here. And raise up the volume a bit. Now my timing on that was actually okay. However, I can go in there and tighten things up a little bit better so that everything's directly on the grid. To do that, I'm going to click on this button up here. Time warp, and select free warp, and now I can see kind of the beginning of each word that I said. If I just click, create markers, now drag these, stretch them, and we do it like this. We can now zoom in and put each of these markers directly onto the grid. Very cool indeed. So let me zoom in just around this newly recorded vocal. I'm just going to click solo for now. Now to get to the effects, what we're going to do is click on this edit channel settings button. And that's going to bring up the channel settings on the channel we've got selected. So we have access to the fader again here, as well as our solo and mute and our read and write. Now in the middle section, we have an EQ. The layout of yours might look slightly different from mine. You just click on the cog button and you can change the layout as you like. Now, of course, in a beginner's guide, I'm not going to give you a full explanation as to what an EQ is, but at its basic level, we can cut and boost the signal at different frequencies. So if I turn the first one on and just start moving this about, you should hear. And we do it like this. We've also got access to a pre-gain. This will increase or decrease the volume of the signal before it gets to the fader. And we also have a high cut and low cut, so we can cut out all the low frequencies or the high frequencies. And we do it like this. Now if we click on the channel strip, you can see we have the EQ here, and we also have other effects like gate, compression, de-esser, saturation, and limiters. You can turn these on and off as we so desire. Again, in a beginner's guide, I can't explain what all of these do, because each one of these things will take a very long time to explain individually, but just go ahead and experiment with them. Now in Cubase, we do have access to a whole lot of presets on these. If you want to get experimenting, but you're not entirely sure what everything does, just click on the preset manager, go to load strip preset, and here you can see we have tons and tons of track presets. So let me grab one that says vocal. Let's try this AM vocal male. And you see the layout here is slightly changed. Let's have a listen to what that sounds like. And we do it like this. Not too much difference. Let's try a rock one. And we do it like this. You can hear there's just a subtle bit of distortion on there. But again, this is not a mixing tutorial, so have a little play about with these. It's not just on audio, you can do this. You can do this on any of your instruments as well. Exact same thing. But let's stay with this vocal and let's look at effects. So there's two places we can have effects, on the inserts or on the sends. So to put an effect on an insert, I'm going to click on the drop down menu, go to my Steinberg folder, and you should have a whole bunch of effects that you can just start playing about with. As you can see, there's a whole lot to choose from, so I'm not going to go through them all. However, I have made a video going through them all, which you can watch by clicking up here or up here. But let's try delay, and let's just go with the stereo delay. And now if I play the vocal back, we should hear that vocal come through this delay. And we do it like this. Now each of these effects does have its own presets. So let's just pick one, see what it sounds like. And we do it like this. And like that. So the way that the signal flow works on an insert is the audio comes through the arranger and into whatever effect we have here, the stereo delay. And that gets fed out into our stereo out through the fader here. Now we can also add effects as sends. And with the send effect, we basically send part of the signal to an effect rather than putting the entire effect on the entire signal as we're doing with an insert. Again, in the beginner tutorial, I'm not going to explain the differences any further than that, but I'll just show you how to set up a send. I'm going to right click and go to add channel to send one. Again, I'm going to go to my Steinberg folder. This time I'm going to get a reverb. And let's just go with Roomworks SE. And give it a title. Now I'm going to set the mix level to 100%. Always very important when you're putting effects on a send channel. And when I play this now, we should hear that the reverb has been added. And we do it like this. And we can determine how much reverb we want by clicking and dragging here. So if I put it all the way down, we'll have no reverb. And we do it like this. But of course we still have the delay, which is on the insert. If I pull this up. And we do it like this. And you basically just get this to a point that we like. And now I just advise you to go crazy, start playing about with different effects, see what you can get. Now we also have effect presets to get you started. You just go to preset manager, load effects chain, and let's see what we have for vocal. Let's try this. Lead vocal edgy. See what that does. And you see it's now loaded up all of these effects. Turn the reverb off for now, which we can do by clicking this button, and we can turn any of these effects on and off right here. But anyway, let's have a listen to what we have. And we do it like this. And if you want to go in and edit any of these, just click on the E button to open up each effect. Let's turn the reverb back on and let's take solo off and let's have a listen in the mix. And we do it like this. Okay, so that is a little bit much for this track. See if we find a different one. Let's try this. And we do it like this. Okay, I like that. A little bit loud now, so let's pull it down. And let's just quickly finish up by putting some effects on the actual vocal. Again, just going to go with the preset. Try this. Vocal effects space delay. Let's try something on the drums. So I've just typed in drums and I'm going to try in this Roomzilla group. So we can turn all effects on and off at the same time by clicking on this button here. Let's put some effects on the piano. And let's put some effects on the lead as well. So listen with and without. And let's put everything together and have a listen. Now, once you have something that you're happy with and you want to export it to like an MP3 or whatever, so you can go and listen to it on your phone or in your car, the first thing I advise you do is insert some silence at the beginning of your project. So make sure your cursor is at 0 by hitting this button. And I'm just going to hit my loop marker over that first bar, go to Edit, Range, and insert a silence, and that's just going to shift everything back by a bar. I'm going to go to the end of the project, press play. To hear where that crash starts to fade out, and holding down Alt and click, I'm going to set my end marker. Now I can see that my stereo out was going over 0, and I don't want that when I'm exporting. I could fix it in the mix right now, but for now, I'm going to put a limiter on the channel strip and just make sure that the output is set to 0. That will stop anything from going above 0 on the output. File, Export, Audio Mixdown. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to put it on my desktop under File Type. Choose what you want. I'm going to go with an MP3. Want high quality mode. And I'm going to set the bit rate 320 and then just hit export audio. Just let it do its thing. And now if I go to the desktop, you see we have that MP3 mixed down. Okay, so that's it for now. Hope you found that useful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Let me know in the comment section if you're still watching after 60 minutes. Now, hopefully I've given you everything you need to be enjoying your musical journey within Cubase. However, if you want feedback on your tracks or you want one-to-one Zoom lessons, check out the link in the description below to my Patreon page and maybe we can sort something out over there. Anyway, that's it for now. I've been Craig Lopez. This has been Tutorialism. Now, enjoy Cubase 12. Peace.